Hey there guys, welcome. You're listening to the Yoga Local podcast and I'm recording this from our studio here in Wellingborough in Northants. Don't forget we have an online studio as well, so on-demand classes as well as live feeds. So if you kind of like the kind of content and the kind of teaching that I'm offering here, please come and check us out. And today we're going to talk about something that is really relevant to all of us. We're going to take a deeper look into the ego, demystify what it means. When we hear the word ego, we tend to think of it as arrogance or of someone who's kind of full of themselves. But the ego is a lot more than that, and it's important. It's not something to be rejected, but it does quietly weave its way into our daily lives in ways that we might not even notice. So I'm going to ask you to kind of start to look at your everyday ego and start to see how it's showing up in your life. So let's wander through a few simple scenarios. So a big one is seeking approval. So this can be the scenario of you're posting something on your socials and you sit there refreshing like a madman and waiting for those likes and comments to start flooding in. And our spirits soar when we get those thumbs up, when we get those comments and those likes. But if the response is a bit meh, we feel deflated. And that's your ego. That's your ego, which is hungry for validation, for approval. So I'm sure we've all had that experience, I'm included. Okay, part of this work is recognizing, right? Recognizing when the ego is showing up. So here's another scenario. So defensiveness is another one. So someone dares to criticize your work, and you instantly, you're on the back foot, you're defending, you're trying to uphold your sense of rightness and maybe importance even. So instead of seeing that as a helpful nudge, that's going to help you with, some way of being, living, doing, you might take it as a personal attack. And this is your ego putting up its fisticuffs to protect your self-image. So again, I'm pretty sure most of us, if you're human at least, and not an enlightened sage just yet, these are going to be experiences that you are familiar with. Let me know in the comments and describe your experiences. You probably had some today. The next one is comparison. So this is when you start, comparison is the death of joy. I love that phrase. Comparison is the death of joy. But this is when you catch yourself comparing yourself, your life, your job, your achievements to others, either feeling smug or completely inadequate. I'm guessing you can see how social media is quite an ego kind of playground, right? This endless game of comparison is your ego's way of measuring your worth against external circumstances and external standards, often not ever living up to them. So again, hands up if you've had that particular scenario play out, and please comment and let me know how it went. I want to now talk about ego in more of a spiritual context because it is explored, particularly in yoga, and it's known in yoga as the Ahamkara, and it's seen as the false sense of self. So it's more the identity that we've pieced together from our experiences, from our culture, from our society, from our parents, from our friends, from the, from all the conditioning that we've received during our lifetime. And that gives us a sense of our individuality, but it also creates barriers to our true self, true wisdom, true knowledge, and the wider world. It's a very limiting way of operating in the world. It's necessary. It kind of shapes how we see ourselves in the world. but it's also a way that is restricting. It's restricting and limiting. So how does it shape our reality? Well, it often leads us to act in a way that is trying to protect this identity. We try and protect our personality. You know, I always smile when I catch myself or other people saying, oh, well, that's not just who I am. I'm this type of person. I am this, I am that. This is me. And we've already created a very specific image of who we are, and it gives our sense of self-worth, it gives us our sense of being in the world. But it can lead us to act in ways, as I said, that protect this identity, even if it's unhealthy. And, you know, I've been there, I have done this. So, for example, you might stay in a job you detest, you absolutely hate it, because it fits into the successful persona that you want to project, even though it's slowly draining your soul. And I have been there, and I don't recommend it. But it also can be in your yoga practice, right? So you have this image of you being like fierce and energetic and strong and forceful, you know, that you've got control. And there's a lot of necessity in letting go of that need to control, letting go of pushing or repelling in practice, so that you can actually come to something fresh. So I really want you to kind of start to be curious about those constructs of your personality and how they start to bring up walls, and often unhealthy walls that prevent you from seeing things in a new way. Ooh, wow, the sun's coming in. Okay, so how do we move past the level of the ego to move more into soulful alignment of who we really are? Okay, so this is what yoga offers. It's a pathway to dissolve the constructed self, okay, the self that is that we are using to operate in this world. Through mindful practice, we start to go beyond the ego's tricks, and we start connecting with true self, or Dharma. Okay, so the yoga tradition reminds us that we're all brought into this world with a unique blueprint, a great idea. It's called a mahad, and that is our unique purpose, our unique potential in life. And while the ego isn't bad and it's helping us to navigate the world, what we're trying to do is steer it to the deeper truth of who we are and that great idea of why we exist. So we want to be steering our lives through the lens more of the Purusha and less of the ego. And this balancing act allows us to create harmony in our nature and start to make choices that are more soul aligned and larger than we're currently kind of giving ourselves permission for, because we've already kind of locked off and dismissed what it is to be us. I'm hoping this is making some kind of sense to you, but I want to offer you some practical steps that can help you to start to move past the layer of the ego and start to move into this space where we're working from our Purusha, our soul. So our thoughts, our actions, our deeds are being led more by that than the ego, which is constantly seeking all that comparison and validation and permission to be. Okay, so are those practical steps. First of all, mindfulness. The term mindfulness is kind of overused these days, but it's it's a very important part of our yoga practice, which leads us to being present in the moment. Okay, so no distractions, single pointed focus. Then we can notice in that moment when the ego is on the hunt for that validation, for that comparison, or is moving into self-defense mode. Acknowledging these feelings without judgment is key. And if we're in our lower mind, in the ego's kind of grasp, we don't get to move beyond that. Another practical step, which is all built into a complete yoga practice. So if you're just practicing asana, guys, you are not practicing the completeness of yoga. Okay, so self-inquiry, massive part. Svadhyaya is the Sanskrit term. And this is starting to give you the potential to ask yourself, why am I reacting in those certain ways? And then you can start to question, are these actions driven out of fear, insecurity? Am I looking for self-approval when I'm in that pose? Am I looking around the room looking for approval as to my value as a yogi because I can touch my toes or I can't touch my toes? It's an absolute nonsense, right? Because we're just playing into the lower levels of the mind and the ego, and that's not the goal of yoga. We're looking to shift beyond that and into true self, remembering who we are and making friends with that part of who we are. So this self-awareness is that first step towards change, and without it, your practice is lifeless and meaningless and just all wrapped up in ego and lower mind concerns. So then there's a yoga practice, woohoo, right? A general yoga practice. Engage in regular practice. It's the consistency, really, that is going to help you to develop in any way, okay? So not for entertainment, not just to stretch out the body once or twice a week, but to do some real committed and work that is going to move you from where you are to where you want to be. It's going to empower you and transform you. It's not just about strengthening the body, it's also about calming the mind and creating that landscape, creating that environment where we can start to identify where we are in our progression. Are we still hanging out in lower mind thinking? Is the ego still grasping and clinging desperately to a preconceived, formed idea of who you are? And are you energetically allowing yourself to move past that barrier that is keeping you separate from soul, separate from Purusha, separate from realizing and understanding true self? Okay. Gratitude, again, I don't think anyone these days can deny the power of a gratitude practice, but again, it's often extracted, just be grateful and get on with the rest of your life, right? So what yoga is doing is bringing all these practices together in a very systemized and scientific way that's going to give you results. Science is, by its nature, is a practice of doing something and having guaranteed results. Okay, so gratitude as part of a complete yoga practice is important. We cultivate gratitude as a result of practicing, and this starts to shift us from lack, what we don't have, the whinging and the bitching and the moaning, and it's starting to appreciate the present moment, because all that bitching, whinging and moaning, that's your ego kind of at play. And when we move and shift our energy into states of more compassion and gratitude, then that's a big game changer, because we can then shift past the ego's grasp. And finally, another practical step is to be in service. So acting in service and engaging in activities that are kind and giving helps to diminish the ego's grip by fostering a sense of connection with the community. However, caveat here is that we're not doing it to uphold our ego, and our sense of I'm a good person, I do kind things, I volunteer in my community, right? So it's a fine line to walk. It's again, it's got to come not from this is making my personality ego, upholding that, to this feeds my soul, and it's just something that is not quantifiable as something that's going to give you anything external, any external validation. So it's a game changer, guys. Yoga is a complete practice when you start to understand all its complexity, all its beauty, so much to discover, to help you understand and start to reconnect with the truth of who you are. To make friends with your true self is a real gift. So many of us are wandering around today, feeling disconnected, not understanding why we do things sometimes, questioning, is this me? It doesn't feel like I'm aligned, and people are looking for purpose, and I totally get it. And what I don't get is all the unhelpful ways where we can be reaching out and trying to grasp for a sense of identity when there's this 5,000 plus year old tradition that has the answers, it has the solutions, it is the science, it is systematic. If you follow it, you'll get to where you want to go. So come and check us out. We're going to be working with this theme throughout the month of July, making friends with ourselves, understanding the barriers and the boundaries and the limits that we place upon ourselves. What it is to try and touch in on more soul-aligned direction, and understanding that working with the ego isn't about getting rid of it entirely. It's just about understanding its smokes and mirrors. We're all operating from a level of consciousness, and yoga is about just finding that next platform to identify and reflect from and move as a result of that learning and understanding. It provides the tools to discover what is false, what is not us, and uncover what is true, what is our true potential. And by weaving all these practices into our daily life, we can start to live more authentically and more aligned with our true purpose, which is success at the end of the day. And maybe it's time for us all to start to redefine what it is to be successful, because if success is entangled in your ego identity, you're going to end up unstuck at some point, because it won't be satisfying, it won't be fulfilling, and it won't lead you to the deeper truth of what you're here for and what will make you truly happy. So I really encourage you to start to think about yoga practice beyond what we're fed in the Western model, where it's very egotistical. It's all about nailing a pose. It doesn't matter what you look like. I don't care, how many mala beads you have or how many downward dogs you can do. I don't care if you can nail a headstand or a handstand. What we are as yogis are like adventurers along a path towards understanding and getting to know who we really are in this amazing, incredible world, and navigating this amazing vehicle, which is a human body and beingness, and discovering all there is that goes with that. So I hope you're ready to go deeper. I hope this has inspired you. Please feel free to chat back and let me know how any of this kind of makes sense to you, how it resonates with you. And if you are interested in living a more empowered life consistently, then check out our workshops, our classes, our retreats. They're all designed to help you on this journey of self-discovery and personal growth. So I hope to see you soon. Bye for now.